Estimates state that the hurricane has cost the country over $95 billion. The storm destroyed or damaged hundreds of homes in Pennsylvania alone, causing more than $100 million in public infrastructure damage. It shut down almost all of the Gulf Coast oil production, accounting for about 15% of the U.S. total. Louisiana's mainland refineries, which account for about 12.5% of the country's capacity, were also shut down. As a result, prices of oil and gasoline soared throughout the country.
The U.S. has always been at the top of the list of countries damaging Earth's environment, producing more greenhouse gases than almost any other country. Thus, the United States is a major culprit of global warming.
Right now, the U.S. is second only to China in being the main cause of climate change, but historically measuring the nation's cumulative emissions between 1850 and 2007, U.S. is at the top of the list with a wide margin. James Carey, activist and commentator, is here with us now. It's a pleasure, James.
Always.
And your thoughts, please, James, on U.S. policies on climate change.
Well, yeah, the U.S. isn't doing anything to fix climate change, at least not in any realistic manner. There are proposals, obviously, and again, this is the neoliberal revolution, right? There's these proposals that from Mayor Pete, the transportation secretary, and Biden's White House, like the gas tax, charging people per mile. There are things like emissions tests on cars. Certain states here, not all of them have emissions standards tests you have to pass to be able to drive on the road in that state. There are tons of things that they say they do, but what they amount to is punishments on the consumer. They punish the American people to pretend that some action is being taken on climate change. Even when it's something that punishes a corporation, it's usually something like GM or the major car manufacturers have to reduce their emission standards in order to pay for the development of that and the extra costs of building the cars. That's passed on again to the customer anyway, though. So then there's, energy infrastructure. We have no plan.
According to experts, only the toughest and most resistant infrastructure can protect civilians from how climate change has intensified natural disasters. U.S. current state of infrastructure right now is in total shambles.
You're seeing things you don't normally see. I mean, you're seeing the subways in New York City flood. You're seeing hurricanes come up farther north than they ever do. There's massive destruction. I'm actually surprised New Orleans, where Hurricane Katrina was, held out from complete flooding with the levees that George W. Bush put in. It still did not stop all flooding, and millions of people are without power still. Things continue to get worse, and I mean, the heat here has been record high summer, and things continue to go like that, and no one has done anything to alleviate it, and there's no political consensus for it.
It is likely that most of the state's levees are unfit and would fail if subjected to a storm surge from a strong climate change intensified hurricane. Levees are only a small part of the country's infrastructure. According to experts, most of the country's infrastructure would not be able to withstand severe and extreme weather events that have become much more common recently as a result of climate change. But who is to blame for the dilapidated and poor state of the country's infrastructure?
There is no unified parties who blame here, whether it's a political party or government agencies or whatever. There is nothing that any individual in the state has any interest in doing anything about. We start with Reagan and Thatcher in the UK, this mass privatization of essential services that the state used to provide. And then we go into, the end of the Soviet Union, the end of history, basically, what it was thought of here. And we have a time where we think the future is to privatize everything. The future is to cut budgets. The future is to change technology will replace the need for us to do anything in this country. And it hasn't become that. People thought that we just wouldn't need some of these things. We wouldn't need, what do they care about the roads? It does not, as long as they're working, it's not much of a value to them. Water has clearly become an issue. And, all types of critical infrastructure fails, whether it's in a Democratic city or a Republican state. That's just it is. It's a matter of who can get their hands out and the government will pay them.